Hello, this is Max. Make yourself comfortable, listen to the stories of the Undertaker, and solve the mystery of his house. Don't forget to subscribe. A paperboy is cycling through his route and enters a mysterious town called Raven's End. Towards the end of his delivery, he notices that papers are left untouched outside a creepy house. Curiosity gets the better of him, so he decides to ring the doorbell. As he peeks through the mail slot, he captures a photo of an old man who startles him with his piercing gaze. However, as the boy tries to retrieve his camera, he realizes that the strap is stuck in the slot. Just then, the door of the house opens, revealing the town's mortician named Montgomery Dark. He warmly greets the boy and kindly asks him to retrieve his camera. But the boy, overwhelmed by fear, flees from the scene, leaving his camera behind. Later that day, during a funeral service for a young boy, Montgomery delivers a heartfelt eulogy. After the funeral, he notices a young woman attempting to open the boy's coffin. Concerned about what she might discover, he intervenes and stops her. The woman introduces herself as Sam and expresses her interest in applying for a position at the mortuary. Intrigued by Montgomery's vast collection of books, Sam encourages him to share a story. Montgomery obliges and begins narrating a tale set in the 1950s. The story revolves around Emma, who attends a party and uses the opportunity to steal money from unsuspecting men. While inspecting her loot, she stumbles upon a pocket watch, which she hides in her bra. As Emma tries to pry open a medicine cabinet with a nail file, she accidentally cuts her hand. To her horror, when she finally unlocks the cabinet, she discovers a tentacled monster inside. Frightened, she tries to escape but fails, ultimately meeting a grim fate. Sam compliments the story but suggests that it could have been enhanced with a twist. Montgomery assures her that he has more tales to share and proceeds to ask her to sign a document formalizing her employment at the mortuary. Leading Sam through the foyer, she notices several pictures of previous morticians who served in the house. In the viewing parlor, Sam inquires about the story behind the deceased boy, but Montgomery refuses to recount certain unsettling tales. Undeterred, Sam insists on hearing another story, so Montgomery recounts a tale set in a university during the 1960s. The story follows Jake, a charismatic frat boy who sets up a booth on campus advocating for women's empowerment. He playfully challenges the patriarchy, emphasizing that women have the freedom to choose their partners as long as they prioritize protection. Jake distributes contraceptives and makes remarks to his fraternity friends, Todd and Connor, about their party where they anticipate attracting impressionable women. When Connor notices a shy and attractive woman passing by, he offers her a contraceptive. However, Jake interrupts and redirects Connor to distribute the contraceptives to a fictitious lacrosse team. The woman, Sandra, senses that Jake doesn't fit the profile of a freshman and confronts him. Jake tries to play it off as a joke, stating that he only hangs around to have casual relationships. Surprisingly, Sandra admits she's there for the same reason, prompting Jake to clarify that he was merely joking. Before parting ways, Jake invites Sandra to their fraternity's party, to which she responds with a possibility. On her way to class, Sandra notices a billboard displaying photos of missing male students, piquing her curiosity. When Jake spots Sandra at the party, he immediately takes her to his room. While they engage in some activities, Sandra playfully warns him that she might be a serial killer. As she pushes Jake onto the bed and undresses, she discreetly conceals something in her skirt. Moving closer to Jake, she reveals that she has a surprise for him. However, Jake's excitement turns to disappointment when he sees that the surprise is just a contraceptive. Reluctantly, he puts it on, but during their encounter, Jake secretly removes the contraceptive without Sandra noticing and continues their proximity moment. The next morning, Jake wakes up to find Sandra already gone. He discovers that she left her phone number on the mirror, but he hastily wipes it off, though remnants of the digits remain visible. Suddenly, Jake experiences discomfort in his stomach and rushes to the bathroom to vomit. Concerned, Connor arrives and notices rashes covering Jake's body, advising him to see a doctor. At the clinic, Dr. Harold Kubler prescribes penicillin for the rashes but detects something unusual in Jake's medical file, prompting him to request further examination. As Kubler hears a heartbeat and growling from Jake's abdomen, he asks him to wait and leaves the room. Left alone, Jake examines his file and is shocked to discover that he is pregnant. Back in his dorm, Jake attempts to terminate the pregnancy with a pill, but he ends up vomiting shortly after taking it. Realizing he needs to contact Sandra, Jake struggles to dial the correct number since he erased the last digit earlier. Finally connecting with Sandra, he asks her to meet him at her house. As Jake tries to leave the frat house, his fraternity brothers stop him to celebrate his 67th proximity encounter, considering the number significant as it represents their 67 founders. They hoist him on a chair to hang his name on the mantle, but suddenly, Jake's water breaks and sprays onto his frat mates. Jake hastily drives to Sandra's house once his frat brothers release him. Upon arrival, Sandra's father, Ralph, expresses frustration upon seeing Jake's pregnant belly. Sandra's mother, Margaret, contacts Sandra and prepares for the delivery. When Sandra enters the room, Jake confronts her about his unexpected pregnancy. Sandra points out that he was supposed to use protection, and Jake apologizes, revealing his past struggle with weight and his efforts to transform himself. However, he acknowledges that his personality deteriorated as his physical appearance improved. Sandra looks at him with pity but walks away and contacts another man to arrange a date. As the fetus moves within Jake's womb, he turns to Ralph and asks how the baby is supposed to come out. Margaret explains that it will be delivered the same way it was conceived. In excruciating pain, Jake screams as the infant forcefully emerges from his body. His reproductive organ is crippled and blood falls on the wall in the room. Margaret swiftly retrieves the baby and takes it to the nursery, but in her haste, she accidentally steps on a whistle toy. The cries of all the babies in the room fill the air, and one of them extends its talons upward as Margaret hurriedly exits the room. Sam expresses her admiration for the story, noting that it contains all the elements of a gripping tale. Montgomery then led Sam to the embalming room and shows her the body of a young woman. Sam remarks that the woman appears flawless, but Montgomery reveals that she has traces of magnesium in her upper palate, a common occurrence in patients in catatonic states. Montgomery proceeds to recount the story of Carol Peters and Wendell Owens. During the wedding ceremony, Wendell experiences a moment of happiness as he places a ring on Carol's finger. However, the church suddenly goes dark, and Carol starts breathing heavily when the priest asks about their vows lasting until death. In his nightmare, Carol screams at him, and Wendell wakes up in a panic. Worried about Carol's deteriorating condition, Wendell goes to check on her in her room. Faced with the heartbreaking reality of her catatonic state, Wendell feels helpless. Returning home from the grocery store one night, Wendell encounters Mrs. Avery, who notices the abundance of food he purchased. She boasts about her own experiences of indulgence after her husband's passing. As they wait for the elevator, Avery comments on her newfound freedom to go wherever she pleases. Wendell, however, chooses to take the stairs. Back at home, Wendell prepares carefully arranged plates of food for Carol, blending vegetables, fish, and meat to make it easier for her to consume. When Dr. Kubler examines Carol, he notes that she appears stable. Wendell anxiously asks how much longer she will live, prompting Kubler to reveal that she has approximately 1 year left. Overwhelmed by the financial burden and uncertain of his ability to sustain her care, Wendell becomes desperate. Sensing his desperation, Kubler subtly suggests that Carl's fate might change if she were to consume 2 or more of the pills he provides, which leave no trace behind. That night, Wendell dresses up for a candlelight dinner with Carol, presenting her with an Arctic hare figurine as a gift. He pleads with Carol to show him a sign of consciousness, but she remains unresponsive, lost in her own world. Frustrated, Wendell slams his hand on the table. In an impulsive act, he meahes the pills into Carl's food and feeds her. To his astonishment, Carol suddenly grabs his arm and screams. Wendell quickly removes her restraints, believing she has regained some responsiveness, only for her head to slump back onto the table. When Wendell removes the figurine from her head, he discovers that she has been impaled by it. Distraught and seeking guidance, Wendell contacts Kubler for help. To his surprise, Kubler callously advises him to dispose of Carl's body in the ocean. Wendell places Carol's body inside her bridal chest, but it doesn't fit, so he is forced to invent something. As he starts working with a saw, Carol momentarily comes to life, screaming in agony. Wendell perseveres, finally managing to fit the dismembered pieces into the chest. Pushing the trunk into the elevator, he encounters a neighbor who asks him to hold the lift. Overwhelmed by panic, Wendell forcefully closes the doors, injuring his neighbor's hand. As the elevator begins to descend, it suddenly stops before reaching the ground floor. Mrs. Avery arrives and offers to call the police, but Wendell insists that the elevator will start moving again soon. Despite his protests, Avery insists on contacting the authorities. As the elevator doors close abruptly, Wendell notices Carl's blood seeping out from the chest. Desperate to escape, he tries to pry open the doors but loses his grip. Wendell hurls his wedding ring in frustration. To his surprise, the bridal chest unlocks itself, prompting Wendell to attempt opening it just as the elevator resumes its descent. The elevator continues its descent beyond the ground floor, and Wendell looks out the window to witness a vision of himself and Carol living happily together. Suddenly, Carl's decaying corpse emerges from the chest and places the wedding ring back on Wendell's finger, forcing him into a haunting kiss. As the elevator continues to descend, the police discover Wendell sitting on the floor, reciting his wedding vows while clutching his wedding album. Montgomery informs Sam that Wendell lost his sanity and was committed to Kirksdale Mental Asylum. Montgomery led Sam to the basement, where she expresses her dissatisfaction with his stories, claiming they are predictable, with people paying a terrible price for their sins. Montgomery emphasizes that this theme carries a timeless message, as no evil deed goes unpunished. As they prepare to push the boy's coffin into the cremation chamber, Sam confesses that she never intended to apply for a job. She reveals that she came to see the boy, Logan, because his death was her fault. Sam pleads with Montgomery to allow her to see Logan one last time, and he compassionately opens the coffin for her. Sam proceeds to share the story of the night Logan died while she was babysitting him. As Sam watches a horror movie titled The Babysitter Murders, she receives a message on the answering machine from Dr. Kubler and his wife, Deborah. They inform her that they might return home late and instruct her to ensure that Logan is asleep. Before hanging up, they casually mention that she can fix herself something to eat if she's hungry. After checking on Logan, Sam turns on the radio and starts preparing some food. Meanwhile, a news report interrupts the movie, warning residents about a riot at the asylum and advising them to lock their doors due to possible escaped inmates. Unaware of the broken window near the door, Sam fails to notice it when she takes out the garbage. Upon returning inside, she discovers a man with a head wound in the living room and rushes to the kitchen to grab a weapon. Sam manages to get hold of a cleaver but drops it when the man sneaks up behind her. Recognizing the man's confusion, Sam attempts to help him by cleaning his wound. As the phone rings, the man becomes agitated. When the answering machine picks up, Deborah's voice urges Sam to lock the doors because a psychopath known for harming children has escaped from the asylum. Sam notices the man's eyes fixating on Logan's toy and takes decisive action, putting the man's hand into the meat grinder. Sam then tries to strike him with a meat pounder, but he retaliates with a kick, knocking her down. Slowly, he withdraws his mangled hand from the grinder, while Sam regains her footing and attempts to stab him, only to be blocked by a chopping board. Sam continues to fight back against the man, even as he screams over the phone, with Deborah still on the line. In a desperate move, Sam removes the man's ear, but he retaliates by slamming her onto the floor. Hearing the man scream from Logan's room, Sam rushes to the scene. Armed with a fire poker, she attacks him while he hurls books at her. Despite her efforts, the man overpowers her once again, punching her repeatedly before searching for Logan. The Kublers arrive at the house, but they are unable to enter due to the chain lock on the door. Strangled by the man, Sam pleads with him, insisting that he is not a killer. Surprisingly, he releases her and declares that it's over. Seizing the opportunity, Sam pushes him down the stairs. Though he regains consciousness, Sam drops a television on his head. When the Kublers enter the house, they recognize the deceased man as the babysitter. The news later reveals that the escaped inmate responsible is a woman known as Charlotte Gibbons, also known as the Body Baytooth Fairy. Deborah panics upon realizing that Logan is missing, and their horrifying discovery of his remains in the oven sends them into a state of terror. Montgomery inquires why Charlotte came to the mortuary, and she extracts a tooth from Logan's remains, explaining that she needs it for her collection. In an attempt to silence Montgomery, Charlotte stabs him. However, he merely laughs as embalming fluid seeps from his wound. Montgomery informs Charlotte that she got the job, but she flees. As Charlotte reaches the door, she finds herself back inside the house when she passes through it. Seeking refuge in the library, Charlotte desperately tries to escape Montgomery. When he catches up to her, He reveals that he was once like her, believing he could evade the consequences of his actions until he encountered the house. Montgomery stomps his cane on the floor, causing books to fall from the shelves. He remarks that Charlotte would be surprised to discover how many of the stories in the library are hers. The books open on their own, and dark spirits of children emerge from the pages. One of the spirits bites Charlotte, causing her to drop her collection of teeth. She screams in agony as the other spirits attack her. Eventually, Charlotte dies, and a spirit picks up one of the teeth from the ground, placing it back where it belongs. After restoring Charlotte's body, Montgomery leaves the house. As he steps outside, he breathes a sigh of relief, but suddenly, he disintegrates into dust. Inside the house, Charlotte comes back to life and witnesses her monstrous face in the mirror. Embracing her new role as the mortician, Charlotte proceeds to tell a story to the paperboy. As he attempts to leave, she dissuades him by revealing that she is about to prepare dinner. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.